Hi, folks. So many of us could be considered as being orally fixated. That's a term that originated with Sigmund Freud. He came up with that idea to basically say that people can be stuck in certain stages of development, and the oral stage being the first one. Now, there isn't much research to really support that contention. And I don't know, even as a psychologist, if I buy into that so much. I like to rely on Occam's razor. And that is a principle that basically states the simplest explanation is usually the right one. So is it that we are stuck in a certain stage of development? Or is there another reason why we have become so orally fixated? And by orally fixated, I mean that we are obsessive to a degree with things that we consume. The mouth is the first entry point for anything that we're going to consume, be it food or drink. And because many of us are orally fixated, a lot of us also will have other types of oral fixations besides food. There's a lot of people that not only rely inappropriately on food to fulfill them, but also alcohol and other kinds of things that can be consumed. You can use your imagination for that one. So if that's the real issue, that it's an obsession with things that we consume, it still begs the question, why? Why do we become orally fixated? What is the mouth associated with? The mouth is associated with consumption, right? And consumption, consuming things, certainly, and I've spoken about this in past videos, certainly can be a type of nurturance, right? Food and drink can be a type of nurturance. Food and drink satisfies biological needs. But if we were only looking to satisfy biological needs, then we would be able to maintain a healthy size and shape. So there's an over-reliance on food and drink. So why? Why are we so orally fixated? Why has this area become so important for us? Because we start to associate filling ourselves up with food and drink with taking care of ourselves, with nurturance. I would make the jump to even say that in our minds, it's a form of self-love, right? If we're taking care of ourselves, if we're taking care of our physical and biological needs, if we're keeping ourselves fed, right, that could be looked at as a way of taking care of ourselves, and taking care of ourselves to the extreme could be, like I said, a form of self-love. And until we dismantle that irrational belief, this is going to keep happening as an ongoing pattern. So how do we dismantle this core belief that I suspect so many of us have, as opposed to being stuck in some kind of developmental stage as Freud proposed? How do we get rid of that? Well, in cognitive therapy, what we do is we focus on the legitimacy of thoughts and whether or not they're rational and based on objective evidence. And so if that is the principle we're operating on, that we want to show ourselves so much love and care, and we do this in the forms of eating and even over drinking, then we have to really start taking that idea apart and dissecting it. First off, over-consuming food and over-consuming anything is not healthy at all and is not a form of self-love. If anything, it's a form of inflicting pain, because when we are overweight, we are very likely shortening our lifespan. We're literally taking away time that could be spent enjoying life, being with others. And if that is not such a concern for you, then the other way to look at this is whatever time we have on this earth, because nobody really ever knows, it's taking away from us really enjoying that time, because it's a distraction, right? All the time that we spend obsessing and being fixated on food could be spent really being truly fulfilled in terms of devoting time to other more important areas of our lives, such as our family, maybe our career, maybe other interests and hobbies, et cetera, et cetera. So it is not a form of self-love. It is not a form of taking care of ourselves. More is not better. And that's something that we really have to keep in our mind. It's a complicated kind of relationship in terms of food and even alcohol, in the sense that more is not better. If you don't have enough food, that's not good. But if you have too much food, that's also not good. Many people who enjoy alcohol would say that if they had no access to alcohol, let's say we went back to a time of prohibition, that would not be good, because alcohol can be certainly enjoyable. But having too much alcohol, we certainly know is not good. So it's complicated in the sense that you gotta kind of have this balancing act and play in the middle, right? It's not like other things where more is better, right? Certainly, an argument could be made maybe for having more love in one's life is better, right? The more love, the better. Some people would argue the more money, the better. Some people would argue against that. But there are certainly things that tend to follow that very simplistic line of reasoning, which is more is better, right? Having more time on this planet, most of us would say, is better. Having more time spent with our family, many of us would say, is better. Not all of us, but many of us. Having more of a positive influence with our kids, right? These are all things that kind of follow that very simple line of reasoning that more is better. But food and booze do not follow that. And we have to really correct that thinking when it comes to food and say, more is not better. If I deprive myself of food and I develop a condition like anorexia, that is not self-love. Many of us could easily say that that is self-punishment, okay? Or if somebody deprives us of food, that would be a form of punishment or neglect, right? But it also works in the other direction. You are not loving yourself more by filling yourself up more with food. You're doing the opposite because you are now risking your health and taking away the quality of time that you do have here on this planet. This is something to think about. This is Dr. Fields. Start dismantling this oral fixation that so many of us have, and start by understanding that this is not a form of self-love. It is a form of self-punishment. We don't need to punish ourselves. I'll have more to say about this at another time.